Welcome to Tracy's Terrors. If you love horror and appreciate smart animal commentary, then you are in the right place. Today, Strigoi, VamPullet, and I are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to dig into a single essay, Grady Hendrix's strange and really striking contribution to the anthology Why I Love Horror, which was edited by Becky, Siegel, Spratford. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel and visit the website tracysterrors.com. So, the anthology collects essays from some of the biggest names in horror. We have authors, and they're all writing about why it is that they love the genre. Most of these essays are using the mode of memoir. Authors are telling anecdotes of their childhood fears, their early influences, and the moments that shaped them. But one of these things is not like the other. Grady Hendrix's essay stands out because, through memories from his earlier life, he seems to suggest that his father, a real man, a cardiologist also named Grady Hendrix, may have been a serial killer. What he's doing isn't quite memoir, and it isn't quite fiction. It's autofiction moved into the realm of horror. And when autofiction and horror meet, the ethical stakes change, and not, I would suggest, not necessarily in a good way. Now, Hendrix positions his essay very clearly in only the way that he could do. He is uniquely situated as a great historian of the genre to give us the context that we need to make sense of his contribution. At the end of the piece, he's very upfront about what he's doing. He says, horror is the genre that's supposed to make you think, did this really happen? He's placing himself in this long tradition, this kind of found footage aesthetic, where now it's found footage, but in the 18th century it would have been letters, epistolary or fragmented documents that together give the illusion of, truthiness. So he puts himself, kind of as an extension of this heritage from the Castle of Otranto to the Turn of the Screw to the Blair Witch Project, where horror stories claim to be true, or, at the very least, they make you wonder, did this really happen to someone? It seems like it could be true. We recognize this now as a trope. We know that this is part of the genre's machinery. Horror trades on the illusion of truth, not really the reality of it. But his essay is very different in that he's not invoking the illusion of truth so much as truth itself. First of all, he's writing in a nonfiction anthology. This is not a novel, nor is it a short story collection. It is a collection of essays that are largely operating in the mode of memoir, and it's framed by Spratford, an editor who explicitly frames his essay as a narrative of trauma. She says Hendrix shares a dark story about his father, someone Hendrix does not often write about. And then she goes on to thank authors who have shared their difficult personal stories here. And because the other essays in the collection are clearly grounded in real life, we're not inclined to read his essay as fiction. For instance, Tenant Reeve Dew talks about her parents, who were real prominent civil rights activists, and Cynthia Palejo talks about serious, horrifying child abuse, and these things are very real. So taken all together, the kind of book in which it appears, the editorial framing, the company that this essay is keeping, we're not really disposed to read it as fiction, and that's where things begin to get tricky. It's tricky because it isn't so much like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the Blair Witch Project. What he's really doing is autofiction. Think of writers like Rachel Cusk or Sheila Heti. Autofiction plays with memory and identity, how we remember, how we represent ourselves, what truth even means when memory is so unreliable, so fallible. Usually the stakes of autofiction are more internal. They're questions of identity, sexual and gender identity, questions about motherhood, art, interpersonal relationships. But even in the realm of autofiction, he's doing something a little different. Autofiction does use real names, but it also often disguises others. And Hendrix isn't disguising names or identity. He's using his own real name, his father's real name and profession, but also the stakes are much different than they are in autofiction. In autofiction, the stakes are more emotional, whereas here they're existential. I mean, were people actually murdered by his father? You know, maybe not. The stakes are much higher than they would be in traditional autofiction, let's say. And that's what makes the essay so unsettling. You know, everybody loves Grady Hendrix. He's a hugely likable figure in horror. But this piece leaves no one clean. If we take him at his word, then we're watching someone sit on potential evidence of crimes. It also means that we, the readers, are consuming a kind of unacknowledged true crime. We're taking pleasure in something that, you know, might be real violence, real dead bodies. If we decide it's fiction, then he's defaming his dead father for an artistic effect, which isn't very nice. He's implying that a man who can't answer for himself, he is passed away. He's implying that a dead man who can't defend himself was a killer. And if we also, you know, shrug and say, it's a metaphor, it's fiction, then we're also dismissing what the anthology and the editor has very explicitly framed as trauma. Obviously, he could be using this serial killer trope as a metaphor for just what was a complicated relationship, not criminal, but just complicated. But I don't know. You know, to use that trope to describe a non-violent, non-criminal relationship really ratchets the stakes up a notch. And there's no comfortable moral position here. If we take it as true or if we don't, we're all kind of in an uncomfortable place. This brings us to where autofiction, horror, and yes, true crime overlap. At least true crime admits that what it's doing, it admits what it's doing. It says, this really happened, we are turning it into entertainment, and you can choose to consume this true crime. This is ethically messy, as we know. There are lots of debates and conversations around true crime, but at least it's honest that way. Hendrix's essay occupies a murkier space. It's fiction without the label, it's truth without the accountability. It ends by really letting itself off the hook. You know, maybe I found a child's arm in my father's freezer, maybe I didn't, maybe. And that kind of ambiguity might be clever on a literary level, and it certainly adds the scare to the essay, but it's also ethically slippy. In her introduction, editor Becky Siegel Spratford says she is obsessed with the question why. Not just what books do we recommend, but why do we recommend them? You know, why that book? Why that story? So maybe the question that Hendrix's essay leaves me with is, why is he doing this? Why bring autofiction, that trend that's garnered so much attention in recent years? Why bring autofiction into horror? Why frame truth as uncertainty? What does that get us, you know? And what does it cost? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate it so much. And visit the website, tracysterrors.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will see you next time. Take care.